Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. This time, we are discussing plotting or plodding. So, I'm not sure how many people are going to bother with enjoying that one as much as I did making that. I came up with it, and I was like, I can't not use it now. It's like, I've thought of it. Who's going to tell me no? It's my channel. But
there you go.
Hopefully you have enjoyed Around the Hearth, and if you're seeing us first and new, this is January Jumble Up. January is the month that we use for anything that doesn't really fit in the themes of the other months. So we just did backstories. This time we're doing we're talking about plotting out a game and the idea of using modules versus sandbox versus just homebrew inside of a setting type of thing, all those type of things weaving together, talking about bringing forward our discussion on backstories within that, incorporating things, goals, flaws, things like that from that. So before we dive into that, we need to get to Dan's introductions and announcements. So, we'll start with me, like we usually do, then we'll do Skrat, and then Dan, taking turns. So, I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads. You can check us out at innofplanarcrossroads.com or theiopc.com. Either one of those works. You can see us and like, share, subscribe, all that type of stuff on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Subscribestar, PayPal, Locals, or Patreon is also in that jumble there. And I said this last time, I'll say it again this time. We are going to be doing any updates for the channel are just going to happen as they go along. We usually reserve those for March, because that's when we start our new recording year, quote, quote. But we're just going to do them as they come along, those updates. So I'll shout them out when they happen for the viewers. But that's mainly what I've got. I think we're ready for Skrat.
Tis I, Skrat, from a Squirrel Plays, over on YouTube, only YouTube, I guess, unless you want to count Discord. Making videos, talking about TTRPGs, doing some TTRPG reviews, indie stuff. I usually don't get into the big stuff, because everybody knows what it is, how it works, kind of pointless at that point. So I like to shed a little light on what's out there that's not so well known, but also do a lot of chit-chatting about world building, character building, and things like that, but approaching it from a writing perspective, because looky here, that is what I do. So fancy, so fancy.
Ooh. Aha! But never shouts those out,
That's true. So look, you can even see the not for sale. That's the author copy. I don't have an actual one, but that's what I like to do.
Can we get hard copies? Because I was going to get your PDF version.
Yeah, you can get it. I'm actually currently, I guess, quick tangent here, going through and proofreading it again because I got really shafted and screwed on the editor. So there was a lot of mistakes in there I'm still trying to fix. So if you want to wait for 2.0, it's the same story. Ain't nothing changing, just typos.
Dude, yeah, let me know. It's on my reading list, so I want to pick it up.
All right.
I was waiting for the audiobook version, but I may just have to do the audiobook version myself and just be like, here, take it, man. I'm wanting to read the thing.
The first editor I had, the good one, the structural editor, she told me I should make one, and I was like, are you crazy? Nobody want to listen to me. And then I made a YouTube channel. I kind of listened, I guess. But anyway, that's what I do. Because there's a lot of overlap between TTRPG and writing. Some things you do differently, some things you do the same. So it's kind of fun to explore that. That's what I try to do and share my 2 cents where I can.
All right. And then Dan.
Pretty cool. I'm Dan from Avenue Studios. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And of course, check out our website, avenuestudios.media. Our big things are, let's see, this will be really close to when we're streaming the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo live game we're going to do, a DC-20 one-shot. So I hope you guys join us for that, or if not, watch it on the VOD later, as we'll be doing a homebrew one-shot that I've created and played for many years, but we've translated to DC-20, and we got some cool guest star appearances there live. And also check out Moonskull. Kristen and I are guest starring on their Starfinder 2E campaign over there, so we're really looking forward to that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this discussion, but I think we got a shout out now.
Yeah. Oh, you caught yourself. You were almost going to do it. You were almost going to do it like last month. All right. He caught himself. He was about to say that we were Levi's shout out, which is Rolling Stag. So go ahead and check out Rolling Stag on YouTube. They are currently at 258 subscribers. He's been pretty active, basically weekly recently. So check those out. He even did an unboxing of the Transformers thing.
That was my fault.
I was gonna say, wait a second.
Yep. So check him out.
Now it all makes sense.
Yeah. So check him out and tell him that the End of Planar Crossroads, Avenue Studios, or a Skrat from a Squirrel Plays sent you, and put that in the comments and get him to 1,000. That's the idea.
So comment fresh meat.
That's what we've been saying. You can say that Skrat said that, or Dan said that.
Yeah, I'll take the blame. Kissy faces and fresh meat. That was too much.
Well, before this gets too wild, that's been our shout out. We've done Dan's introductions and announcements. That means it is time to grab your preferred beverage and join us around the hearth on this cold January as we discuss plotting or plodding. Skål.
Skål.
All right. So as usual, we're going to begin Kane's conversations with a breakdown of some points, and then after that we'll go into full-on open discussion. So homebrew, let me see. First point was homebrew works well for backstory incorporation, and I'm taking that in, as well as goals and other things like that. Reasonable goals. We kind of pointed to last time. Modules take some work off the GM in some ways for like world building and stuff like that. So they can be all right. Adventure paths and campaigns are great starting points for new GMs. There is a reason that Rise of the Rune Lords is more popular than even the D&D modules, as far as even today, I think, is more popular for really starting in a campaign and running a full set of adventure paths, because you can literally buy one book and have an entire I don't remember if that gets you to 20 or not. I think it gets you to like 15 as far as levels. 10 or 15.
I think you're right, 15.
So it gets you all the way up there in the Pathfinder system. So there's a reason that's what a lot of people start with. Now they don't all, very few finish it because they end up doing like homebrew or something like that. But that's just a natural lead-in of your skills maturing and stuff like that. Reflavoring APs or modules can be a great way to bulk out a homebrew campaign. This is something that MCDM, Matt from MCDM, talks about a lot, is using, or he talked about it a lot before they started developing their own stuff, and he was on more topical subjects. About the Village of Hamlet and Village on the Borderlands, or Keep on the Borderlands. Both of those being great ways to start out campaigns, and you can just reflavor them to what you want them to be about. Because they're generic enough, the Village of Hamlet is generic enough that you can change around the names of PCs and NPCs, weave in different backstories and stuff like that. So using those it can be helpful if you need to jumpstart stuff, or if you need tips on how other GMs have handled things. You can look at those published ones. Narrative complexity for one-shots is different than campaigns, and that's part of this conversation, is that narrative complexity between the two and incorporating those things. So a one-shot, it is obviously going to be less complex, whereas a campaign is going to have to be more complex. It is, I get probably 99% of the time, more complex than a one-shot, or even some shots are going to be, because you need to actually understand what's going on in the world if you're going to make a big, long, epic campaign. So those are some points to jump off with. What do you guys got?
Well, I mentioned in the last episode that I started with a module in one campaign we did. And not just because it was 5e, but I hated the module. It did not work for me. It was too much to remember. And it's kind of like, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it feels like you got to be an expert in somebody else's work in order to pull it off. You got to know their stuff. You got to have it memorized. And I just couldn't do that. There was too many moving parts, too many characters to keep up with. And this both could have been just that particular module. It was Dragon Heist was the name of it. And I was also very new to Roll20, and I was very new to D&D in general and running a tabletop game. So very new on everything. But I was told a module could alleviate a lot of the work, and it just ended up adding a lot more headache. And as we did the introductory quest and got everybody started, so in that module, you have this quest you start off with, you call to action, go save somebody, and that sets in motion a chain of events. But after that introductory quest, you have an option to do a bunch of side quests. Like, these other guilds would recognize your deed that you did or whatever and ask you to go do blah, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use this module, start with an introductory quest, and instead of all these guilds, I'm going to replace those with side quests that are specific to the characters that are playing the game, specific to the players. But by the time we got done with that first quest, I was like, I can't do this. This is not working. And I had completely miffed part of it and left out some really key important parts that were critical to getting the rest of the story going. So it's like, all right, well, we're not doing that anymore. And that's when I used everybody's backstory and just built a story off of that and used what little bit I had from the introductory quest.
Well, I guess it accomplished what you wanted then.
It did. It gave me something to work with. Because at the tail end of that quest, you see this Illithid scatter off. And that became my main villain, was that guy that got away at the beginning. And I had no idea why. I was like, he's got a mechanical arm. That sounds cool. So that came into play later.
So one of your characters was like, I need this, I need this, I need this, and I need that guy's arm.
Yeah. So, I guess it worked out, but I didn't like it because it was too much to keep up with and remember, and the way I function and work, that just was a no-go. But I will say, I haven't looked at Easy D6's Book of Quests, but those are like little one-page kind of thing. I don't think they're all exactly one page. I think there are a few pages, but his books are kind of small and got big print. So if 3 or 4 pages ain't much.
Skrat's over here being an author, and then he's like, I like little books with big print.
Yeah, I do. But
he is Unga to the bunga.
I am Unga. Looking for my chunga.
You found your chunga.
I did. Well, the same, but those are just, they're not quite bullet points like, okay, this happens, but they're just this vague little adventure, like here's a problem happening, here's a location, and here's some things you can do, from what I understand. But I also really like, and I'll share it for you here, Adam, if you want to pull it up, Tricube Tales. He has an entire collection of what he calls one-page adventures. I like to pick on him and say, is it really one page? Because it's two. And he's like, well, you print it on both sides.
Oh, he cheats.
Yeah, but I have used these a bunch of times just as idea generators, because you, Adam, if you click the preview button, you get the whole thing for free. That's how he works. So if you want to pull that up, you can see the whole thing. You can just quickly roll up a couple D6s, like what's going on. And sometimes these will add some additional rules to his Tricube Tale game. But you don't have to play Tricube Tales if you're just looking for ideas. You roll up some goals, and then you can roll up some complications and locations. Like one of the locations here is the Gallery of Gore. You know, take it what you will. Complications are fun. And then that adding a twist to the story at the bottom there, if you see that, all those little icons. If you want, you roll up a couple D6, and then it's up to you to interpret what that icon means. And that can lead to some fun, weird things happen. So these are great for making one-shots when you're planning something. You can roll that up and just get some kind of randomizers going on. I think they really help. And again, like I said, sometimes they will add additional rules to his Tricube game, but I've used them for many a nuts one-shots where I just look at these and get some inspiration. I usually don't even have to roll. I just kind of skim through the page and it's like, oh, hey, that's a good idea. That can really help, I feel like. And then there's also just the traditional, I'm going to make everything up myself. But I think I land in the... I used to didn't like prompts, but as I've gotten into the TTRPG thing, I really like trying to make prompts work. Like I am currently working on a Nuts campaign for Avenue Studios. We're going to do that Weird West one. And my prompt is what Jacob made for the one shot. I'm trying to make a world off of that. So I got some limits and some wiggle room here and there. It was fun to try and work in those restraints. So I think we've mentioned it before on one of our episodes about how restricting can breed creativity instead of just having all that free space and reign. So yeah, the prompts are kind of good that way. It's like, I know you got to make something contained in this way. And that seems to work for me.
Well, I like it because it's Eldritch Apocalypse. The Eldritch.
Well, that's why I picked this one.
Man knows what he's doing.
That's right. That's right. Fair enough. I do like that, though. Those are... I've thought of, kind of similar things for when I was... I haven't given up totally on it, but it's definitely not on the front burner of the adversity system. The one page per rule type of thing. No more, not overly overburdening something. So, I like those things. I think that.
I'm kind of curious, do you think, Skrat, it's because you have a writing background that the module felt too restricting to you?
I'm sure it didn't help, and that's why I have the mindset of I feel like I have to be an expert in this guy's work in order to use it, because I feel like I need to know it inside out, and I think a lot of that might have just been Dragon Heist specifically, because it had a lot of moving parts and it had a lot of characters to keep up with. But I just, on the same token, I can't imagine planning out a campaign in that much detail. Because, how do you know the players are going to follow and play along?
You have to be able to read their minds, man.
Yeah, I just can't imagine planning in that much detail. So
I think that gets right into the title of this episode, isn't it? Plotting or plotting.
Yeah.
Where do you fall? What, Adam, you were mentioning one that was 2 Railroad 2, right? That you were in?
Yeah, when Starfinder first came out, their first adventure was too railroady. There was not enough wiggle room in it to allow for people to do things. And this didn't really rear its head too terribly until the first world that we went, the second world. Well, it's technically the first world because it's the first planet. We started on Absalom Station. So the game starts on Absalom Station. And then you go to Castrovel, I believe.
Oh,
so,
all right.
You go to Castrovel, and you need to get in and see this guy that's in this office, or at least that's where you think he is. Well, the big problem was we told it wasn't Greg's fault. Greg was running it, and we told Greg, okay, run it like the module says, because we were trying to get a feel of the module itself and of the system, and not have a whole bunch of loosey-goosey stuff with it, because we wanted to understand whether we liked it or not. The system was fine, but that you weren't allowed to get in there. You just weren't. You couldn't. I mean, you're people with technology. You could sneak around the one way and get in the back door and stuff like that, or get up on the top or something. You just weren't allowed to do that. The module says no. You're supposed to spend some downtime doing stuff. Well, if you're on a mission, why would you waste time? You're there for a purpose. So why would you waste time not doing the mission? The mission objective's right there. And you're a certain type of person to be an adventurer. So you're kind of goal oriented. You want to get in there. And you weren't allowed to. Period. You just weren't. And that soured me on the adventure path, but I won't say it soured me totally on Starfinder. Starfinder was a little underbaked anyway, but it did have good aspects to it that were good. So I can totally understand that stuff being too railroady. I do think that you didn't pick the best adventure path to start with, though, because a heist game automatically complicates stuff. So something like going back to Rune Lords starts at a festival. It's very simple. It starts at a festival. You can it's naturally letting you mingle with the townsfolk, and then goblins, and then everybody bands together to fight the goblins. So you're automatically building rapport with the town. It makes natural sense that the town then hires the adventurers to go towards Thistletop to take care of the goblin problem, investigate that. It all flows very naturally, and it's not overwhelming on a new GM. But it's very easy to get trapped in that I've got to know everything about the setting to be able to make games in the setting. So to plot things out, to run games in it, I need to know all those things. And that's fine for a homebrew, but I'll tell you right now that I think this has come up on different things, different videos that I've watched over the years, and from personal experience. You only have to know a little bit more than the players, and that's it. You don't have to know all the intricacies and stuff like that. You just have to know a little bit more than the players, and that's all.
Well, that brings up something I was also thinking about. Like, I like the idea of not a module in the sense like here's the entire adventure, but a module like here is a setting. Here are some towns, the world, here's how things work in it. Keeping it kind of generic, but problem is when you start dumping in specific characters, again with the Dragon Heist module, you are in Waterdeep. It's a huge city. You generally can kind of do what you want, but it gives you specific characters, and D&D itself has reoccurring characters like Volo, or whatever his name is. Volo, I forget how you pronounce it.
Volo.
Drizzt Do'Urden, if you ever use him. You know, there are reoccurring characters, and the more people play, your players expect something to perform a certain way, which is kind of why I poo-poo on pre-made stuff, because I did have a player who played a ton of D&D and expected things to work a certain way, and I was like, I've never played D&D. We're doing this my way. Because I don't know what the right way is. So,
well,
that gets into a whole other discussion for sure.
yeah, but I mean, it can, when,
I know what
and
you
again,
mean.
it's player dependent, but like it can, even with the best of intentions, set some expectations when you have definite characters already established. And
Right.
but whereas if you keep it kind of generic, like I was wanting to make a settings book. It was just different settings, like that one episode we had where I talked about the roaming factories that were chasing the storm. I was going to make a setting out of that, and it's very generic. There's no specific characters, but there's goals and elements and things to it. But I think those are going to be nuts modules now. So, but you can take the setting, very kind of similar to what Zadmar's doing with TriCube. It'll be like the setting and then some additional rules for nuts, but you can just take the setting and run with it.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is, there are some people I know who are just hardcore, like especially Pathfinder has some great lore, and there are people who just fall in love with that lore. Those are the type of people that are gonna optimize those modules. But that's because as a GM, so that might be something to think about. As a GM, do you have a passion to learn lore? I would think, because I'm kind of like you, Skrat, too. It's like I feel stressed for some of those because I want to understand it all, but it's because I like to world build too. So I like understanding how the whole world works, and
you also don't want to disappoint your players too, right? Like
for sure, yeah.
Let them down in some kind of way. It's like, oh, I didn't know that's how that worked, or I did it this other way and didn't know that was going to be
right. Exactly.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. There's something to remember. This goes to players and to GMs. There's something to remember, though. The version of the world that you're playing in is your GM's version. It's that version of that world. It's not... I think this actually is a thing that cuts against... it cuts against the overuse that... D&D and Hasbro and stuff like that. Well, Hasbro right now, Wizards, WotC, has for their legacy characters, even when they don't like their own legacy characters, like Dritz. People expect them to be a certain way, like Minx and his hamster and stuff. They expect that character to behave a certain way. And that's fine, but stop putting him in so much stuff then. If you're going to, don't put him in your adventure paths unless it makes sense. If you're not doing something that would make sense to have that character there, stop having the character there. Because a lot of it just reeks of member berries. Remember this, remember that? Don't, that's something you do with your group. That's not something, that's best done, I should say, and most effective with a group that gets the joke. If they don't get the joke, do not be afraid to not make that drow Driz Duerden. Make it somebody else. If they don't know who Minx is, just make it a different barbarian. Make it a Goliath barbarian or something. Don't stress over it. Because it's as the GM, it's your version of this thing. And as the player, it's you're experiencing the GM's version of this thing. Because it's always going to be that way. You're never going to get an exact same thing each time you run an adventure path or module, unless you're running it on a computer like a video game. And that's not how TTRPGs work. So don't come to a TTRPG expecting a video game. Unless you want something like that. And then you're not playing D&D, really. You're playing something else. You're playing a different game. Which is fine.
D&D keeps trying to be a video game, honestly.
Well, I mean,
feels like it.
Hasbro and WotC try to keep making it that.
Yeah.
I don't know who to blame more, Hasbro or WotC, but it doesn't really matter.
There's plenty of other systems out there.
That's right.
Well, and there is Adventures League and Pathfinder Society. That's some kind of in between. Although I think for the reasons we're talking about, I know especially Adventures League struggles to keep DMs. I know our local place is struggling to get Pathfinder Society started.
Well, it runs into the same problem. It's a cool idea.
Right.
Because the problem with Adventure League and Pathfinder Society is that they want the players to take their characters and be able to carry them through to other tables with other GMs that are running in that. And I think it seeks to solve a problem that in the digital age doesn't quite exist the same way that it used to, which is the problem of finding a group to play with.
Right.
That's not as hard of a thing to do now. There's entire Facebook groups. Even when they were trying to start this up outside after Facebook became a thing and social media became a thing, I agree that playing at a physical table can't be replicated online. It is just different. But I also think that you don't have to play one way or the other only. So, if you can't get to a table, talk to your friends, be like, hey, you want to do Discord's free, yo.
Yep.
The freest thing that there was when we... Oh, man, it's bad to say this. When I was first starting out in the TTRPGs, you had Skype and you were thankful for it. And that was it. You didn't have any... You didn't have...
In our defense, technology moves fast.
Yeah. So that's what I say. You're complaining about a thing that's not worth complaining about if you're saying you can't visually see their reactions and stuff. Okay, you've got Facebook Messenger on most of y'all's phones. And you're not recording it. Why do you care what your if you're getting like 480p or something? What's it matter? You can still see their face. It's still fine. You can see their reactions. People are talking. So, I prefer a physical table, but online works too.
Yep.
It's a whole lot better than nothing.
Yeah. It really is. I would have started way sooner if I had that available. But just wasn't there. Not like it is now.
All right.
Which is awesome.
Well, we're at about our 30-minute mark, which means we're at Skrat's final question. So does Skrat have a final question for this one?
Yeah, man. Let's see. How do I got? Let me find it. I had one. It wasn't mine, but it was a question I found that I actually liked, and then I have one. If it falls flat, I have a backup one. And the question was, for players, how do you engage with the GM's world or story in a way that respects their preparation / work time, effort, all that good stuff, what they made, while still exercising your character's agency?
Nah, that is a good one. Oh, man, there's so many. I mean, one of the things I think about we were talking about was the goals for your character. It's just a tool. I don't think this is, you guys might be able to pontificate a little more, but this is a tool, having the goal, like I mentioned with the chef, having something that allows you to just jump into whatever adventure and not fall into the like, well, why would my character even... Don't make a character that wouldn't go on an adventure.
That's how you respect your... That's Dan's thing. Make a character that respects your play.
Yeah, I feel like there's actually a pretty low bar. Session 0, we haven't shouted it out yet this month, but Session 0 is always a good thing. I was actually just listening to an actual play, and they were starting a Starfinder Society thing, and they ran into a snag where the players were like, well, the characters were saying, Well, I don't even know if I want. Nobody asked me about this. I don't know if I actually want to go here. And they start like bickering with the person offering them the goal, and it's like, but that's how this whole thing starts. Is you're thinking about joining the society, so you go on an adventure. I'm just like, wait
The
a
GM's
second.
like, forget it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
Yes, it's exactly. It got awkward for a little bit. I'm like, did no one like as a character you can ham that up, but it felt very much like the players were doing it too. So it's like you can play hard to get a little bit, but make sure at the meta level your GM knows I might just play hard to get for fun, but I'm here to play this game and do this story with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That was long-winded, but that's what I'm thinking.
Well,
go on an adventure.
Well, my answer is this is supposed to be for a player. So from a player's perspective, how you respect your GM's thing is, like Dan said, you make somebody that would be involved in that situation. And the session 0 is good. From personal experience, it's not something I really have had much trouble with doing because I've picked games that I would want to play in, type of thing. So I already knew that there was this kind of a character or that kind of a character I'd like to put into that type of a situation. But on the other side of that, as the GM, I have felt like players have respected that when there was something that would have been kind of in the gray area of whether their character would do it or not, and they rolled with the punches. And you can make that happen not just in the meta, but you can make it happen with the other player characters and the interpersonal connections that those player characters have built up being the thing that draws the reluctant character in. So this monk may not be interested in helping people all that much. He's a lawful evil monk or something. But he does have a friend that he respects and values, and that person wants to help. So while he's not interested, he's more interested in the gold and what he can get out of it. This friend is interested in helping, so he helps his friend help these people, type of a situation.
Sounds like the start of a TV show. It's perfect.
Hey, that might be an insult now.
Well,
have you seen what's on TV and on the streaming services?
That's a good point.
My point of reference is 90s to early aughts.
Well, it's okay. It's not terrible. There's some good stuff in those areas.
90s is pretty good.
Yeah.
I know you're an 80s boy.
Well, I don't know about 80s TV. The aughts TV was pretty good for animated stuff. I mean, Avatar: The Last Airbender came out.
Yep.
The 90s had Justice League and Batman. Hard to beat those.
Batman's hard to beat.
That's some good writing in that show.
Oh, I feel bad.
Batman Beyond, or?
Well, Batman Beyond was okay. I kind of like
I only saw a couple episodes of that. Which Batman are we talking about?
the animated
the
series.
original. Yeah, Batman the animated series.
You can't say the original, Dan. That's like in the 60s.
I know. I mean, that was the original animated one, though, right?
Right. The first animated one, I think,
before
was
it?
Batman, the animated series.
Yeah.
That's the one where have you ever seen the clip of the Russian voiceover of it?
Oh.
For some reason, they had to voice over the cat.
The cat?
So, like, if somebody picks up a cat, the cat goes normally, but in the Russian version, a Russian guy had to do it. So the guy grabs the cat and he just goes, so funny sounded.
I gotta look that up. Why?
Probably some
I don't know.
contractual agreements or something.
That's so funny.
This is the funniest sounding cat, man. He just picks it up.
Russian cat is much more sexy than American.
Yeah. And, it's like all, arched up and hissing and everything. Was just,
Oh my god. That's so funny. Oh man, I feel bad now. I had a thought, but it doesn't matter.
It's going.
Whatever Adam said was really good and made me think of something, so I'll just say it was really good. what Adam said.
Okay. Well, Skrat, are you going to answer your own question this time?
I guess good. Not that I've got to
but
join
go ahead,
other
Skrat.
people's campaigns, but I would say when you're making your character a way you could really respect what your GM has done is if they've made an entire world, like technology and everything. Like if we were doing a campaign in this, there's a whole line of technology in that story's based, or that series is based off of. If I were a player in that campaign and somebody else had come up with that, I would do a little research and then make a character that really made sense for that world. I know I said in the first video or first episode, kind of be generic with your backstory. And you can still do that, but have some key elements in there that are very specific to that world. Like, Kesho Knight is something in that universe. So it's like, he was a Kesho Knight smith in this world in his life. That is his career, what he was doing, and now he's setting off for adventure, So that doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody in this room, but that would tell the GMs, like, he's coming with a certain amount of knowledge, both the player and this character. Like, he's going to know how to work his way around some stuff. Like the Weird West campaign we got coming up, if you weren't too familiar with Westerns, like you could do a little research on the time of a West, when that generally taking place, like how gunsmiths worked back then and all that kind of thing, or the cooking and stuff. Do a little research into what you're getting involved with and what the GM has made. Not a whole lot. Familiarize yourself. Kind of like what the player expects the GM to do with your backstory.
Or you can be
street.
Or you can be like a certain character in Bomb Squad and just be like, I want to play John Smith from Halo.
Yeah.
In the fantasy setting.
Legitimately, that's one where building the world off of the characters, one guy just had to be sci-fi. I was like, all right, let's do this. And now look where we are. It was awesome.
It all worked out.
I will piggyback. I remembered what I was going to say too, and it goes with all of this too, is that flexibility as a player. I had one character where I thought I was going to take it one way, and the campaign started, and I realized this doesn't make sense. And I don't know where the miscommunication ended up, or, sometimes when the rubber hits the road, things change for characters. I've always found that after, it takes session 1 to 2 to get in the groove. And you might tweak some things. I had one where I changed his motivations completely from what I initially thought. And that's fine, because for me, I was like, I want to play the character that wants to be in this campaign. So this isn't making sense. We'll just throw it out, because the character's not going to have fun. I'm not going to have fun. The GM's not going to have fun. So tweak it.
Yep.
And it worked out. It was great.
Yeah, I guess the super obvious one would be don't argue with your GM, but this was specific to what they had made. Had to respect that.
Yeah. Well, you can argue with the GM. It's just you may not like the results.
Yeah.
With the GM.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying about having those preconceived notions of how a world works when you use one that already exists. Like there's modules for and stuff. Like I mentioned, I had a player who had played a lot of D&D and very much expected things to work a certain way. And he got, what's the moon goddess lady's name? Saloon, yeah. I used her for something. And I just made her the way I wanted. And turns out it was very lore accurate. I lucked out on that one. But he didn't think that or realize that, and got super bent out of shape at what happened one session. And we had a chat post session, and I was like, well, actually, if you look at the wiki, you're wrong. So I just lucked out on that one.
Yeah, Skrat does this to start, and afterwards,
Skrat is a lucky squirrel.
That was that time, man.
All right.
Yeah, be flexible, be kind.
We're here
That's just in general.
It's a game.
Yes, dude. We're
Yeah.
here to play a game. I don't know. I struggle with the horror stories and stuff. I haven't had too many bad ones, but it's just like, we are adults and we're playing a game.
That's right. Well, that's what I was telling you and Jacob. It's like, I'm so glad y'all are just adults. Yeah, it's so nice.
Thank you. I don't know if that's 100% true. We are very childlike, but only in the best of ways, right? That's what you're supposed to say.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it's a cool thing about RPGs. I always find it funny because it's a social game, and it can actually, if you're paying attention, it can actually teach you how to socialize. It can teach you how to walk through problems, but you got to pay attention.
Storytelling. Storytelling is a thing the world desperately needs and is losing every year with Hollywood doing their thing. But yeah, it's a little different TTRPG worlds.
Well, it is right now, unless you're in Hasbro and Watson.
Well,
Right.
I mean, as far as storytelling goes, because your players are kind of telling the story and making things up as they go, so you can't exactly have a moral of the story set in stone that you're trying to tell.
Yeah, it's still free form. I love it.
All right. Well, we better get on and get to the next one, because
Before we start ranting about modern media.
that's right. So let's go ahead and do our outro now that we are done with all this. We hope you have enjoyed this discussion. Next time, we will, Lord willing, be discussing complexity conundrums.
Whoa.
And building off of these last two discussions and talking about narrative complexity in more detail and what it means to kind of weave these things around and in and stuff. So, do remember that we have shouted out Rolling Stag for this month, so that's 258 is what he's at right now. We can go ahead and hopefully get him up to 1,000. Let's just try and do that. That's like the benchmark goal, I guess, for anybody under 1,000. We're just trying to get him up to 1,000. So go ahead and go over there, subscribe over there to him. He's been pretty active, and remember that we've got a Squirrel Plays to check out too on YouTube. Dan from Avenue Studios and over there on YouTube, Rumble, Patreon, and Locals if you want to support them. And of course, the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And we hope you have enjoyed this discussion. You can check us out on all of those as well as BitChute. And support us through Patreon, Subscribestar, Direct Contact, PayPal, all that. And as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
All right. Y'all good for the next one, or you need a bathroom break?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. So, Plotting or Plodding is the next one. I'm probably too proud of that. I don't think people are going to get that one. But
I like it.
I don't know how many hits Plotting or Plodding is going to get. But I'm doing it anyway.
You know. It's good. It's punny and alliteration. It's like twofer.
How can you resist a pun and alliteration? How can you do it? All right.